Welcome to the calendar year 21 annual suicide prevention training for senior leaders. This training is recommended for majors, E7, GS12 and equivalents, and above. If this class is for you, please continue on. If not, please close this and open the Emerging Leaders course. Before we get started, we want to recognize that some of you have lived experience. No matter what you or your wingman are going through, there's help available. When we have issues in our lives, and who doesn't, the Air Force has a lot of resources to help. If at any time you feel like you need to stop the training and reach out to someone, there's a list of resources here on this page. Please take a snapshot with your cell phone so that you have that available at a later time. If you're concerned about your ability to participate today in this class, feel free to exit and give the Suicide Prevention Program Coordinator, that's me, Sabrina, a call at 830-703-6500. Today we're going to talk about suicide prevention from a senior leader perspective. We'll identify ways that you can promote protective factors to increase connectedness and also help you look at ways that you can model healthy coping skills that encourage your airmen to seek help as well. We'll discuss the ACE model and your role in encouraging your airmen to use the ACE model. We'll also talk about communicating lethal means safety and the slow approach. And finally, we want to also discuss your responsibilities as a leader in postvention in case we do have loss of life due to suicide. We're going to start by talking about connectedness. We use this word a lot, but what does connectedness mean to you, both as a leader and as an individual? Is it when people address you by your name, or when they can actually pronounce your name? Is it when they check in and see how you're doing and recognize those big and small events that are happening in your life? And then we need to talk about how do we build connectedness and how do we use that to help prevent suicide? Leadership-built connectedness helps prevent loss to suicide because when people feel a sense of belonging, we feel seen and heard. It's easier for us to know our fellow airmen and guardians and to demonstrate that we care for each other. It allows us to know when there are changes in behavior. It really is crucially important to build that ahead of time. So ask yourself, what do you do on a daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly basis to build connectedness in your unit? As a leader, we would like to see connected work centers, and we can assist in creating that environment. Leaders are key to moving culture change forward. Our airmen and guardians look for us for direction and to set the example. We have a unique opportunity to model healthy coping, encourage help seeking, and promote culture shifts needed to prevent suicide. You can start by asking yourself, how do I model healthy coping skills? Do you spend time getting to know your colleagues and your subordinates as individuals? Do you discuss with them helpful and healthy coping strategies? And more importantly, do you talk with them about how you address your own stress in healthy ways so it does not become distress? The reality is changing the culture starts with genuinely caring for each other. And you can do that by demonstrating that it's important to take breaks, both for your physical and your mental health. You also want to encourage responsible alcohol habits and highlight the importance of seeking help. Have you thought about how you encourage help-seeking behaviors? Do you talk about the resources that are available to the airmen at your commander's calls, both for your military and for your DoD civilians? Do you talk about your own challenges? Do you support the other people that you work with, your colleagues, not just your subordinates? You know, it's important for us to remind airmen and guardians to seek help early, both formally and informally. And then you should also think about how do our actions and words maybe impact people in a way that discourages them from seeking help. The reality is our perceptions, beliefs, and biases affect our ability or our willingness to reach out for help. Our words and actions may also prevent someone from reaching out, either to us or to someone else. We can become an actual barrier for them to access help. Our language, actions, and beliefs around suicide prevention, mental health, and seeking help can either encourage or discourage the people that are in our lives from seeking help. It's important that we not make assumptions about someone based on the stereotypes about some aspect of their identity or their life. It may actually prevent us from recognizing the signs. So Try to be open-minded about your airmen and what they're going through. Ask questions, get to know them early, and encourage them to seek help by demonstrating that it's important. Another example of how leaders can set the tone is by modeling and reinforcing the ACE model for those in distress. Sometimes we lose sight that this is not just a series of steps, but it's an ongoing, fluid conversation. Listen, it can be really awkward when you first start using ACE, and the emerging leaders are getting additional training on how to use the ACE model. You have an opportunity to help encourage them and to reinforce the importance of it. You can do that by asking them about the ACE model and what they learned, or what do the ACE stand for. It's not enough to talk about it conceptually. We really do have to practice using it. So when you ask your subordinates or your airmen or your guardians to talk you through the steps in the ACE model, actually have them say it the way they would say it to someone else. Not just talk about it from a high level perspective, but to actually put the words in order. Have you thought about suicide? It's a hard question to ask. And the time to ask it for the first time isn't when you're using the ACE model with someone who really is in distress. You could even think about doing a tabletop exercise as part of your staff meeting, and then having your frontline supervisors go out and practice with their own staff. There are lots of ways that you can encourage the use of the ACE model. So think about how you can do that in your own unit so that your airmen are better prepared to help each other. Another focus area of education that leaders can embrace is lethal means safety. In the Department of the Air Force, approximately 70% of suicide deaths involve personally owned firearms as the means. The Department of the Air Force has recently adopted SLOW as an enterprise-wide prevention strategy. SLOW means to use safes, locks, or store lethal means outside the home. What is leadership's role in this time-based prevention in going slow? You can help by regularly promoting safe firearm storage and even the importance of registering firearms if you live on base with security forces. Reinforcing the availability and encouraging the use of gun locks, which we have lots of at the Violence Prevention Office. If you need some to distribute in your unit or at a commander's call, just give us a call at 830-703-6500 and we will ensure that you have some. It's also important to think about encouraging the safe storage of other lethal means other than just personally owned firearms, things like medication. And to understand the importance of this time-based prevention measure just means extending the amount of time between the moment in which someone considers suicide and has a plan to actually ending their life. If we can extend that time, we have an opportunity to save lives. We recognize that barriers exist for leaders to discuss safe storage and lethal means safety. There's guidance about how to address these barriers, especially from two key resources. Your local JAG is there to help advise, as well as the Air Force has put together a time-based prevention public affairs guidance. You can find that in the Laughlin mobile app under Commander's Toolkit, as well as on the Violence Prevention SharePoint site under Wing Staff Agency. Most of us would agree that having a positive outlook can help get us through the grind and stressors of daily life. But sometimes, in our effort to get people to focus on the positive only, we communicate that we aren't really trying to understand or that we're not clearly seeing them. And that can become toxic, or something we refer to as toxic positivity. And it doesn't exactly inspire hope or validation like we intended. So let's take a look at this chart here, and let me just go through a couple of these with you, and let's talk about them. So rather than saying something like, you just have to be positive, try, I'm sure it feels hard to be positive in a situation like this. Or instead of, you should look for the good, try, it's probably hard to see any good in this right now. How can we make sense of it? Here's another one. There are worse things out there in the world. Ooh, that can be hard to hear. And it says that you're not really trying to understand. So try, this is really tough and I'm here for you. Look, words really do matter. They communicate that we see, We're here and we're trying to understand. And we're all going to misstep sometimes. We all know it when we say something that is intended to be helpful or positive, and the person withdraws or cuts you off or shuts down. When that happens, just own it. Just try saying, "I'm sorry, I was trying to help, and I realized I wasn't being very helpful. So let me try again." That can be very powerful because you know what? We're all human. We're going to make mistakes. But what matters is that we're trying and that we're here. Unfortunately, instances of suicide may still occur. After an unfortunate incident where a member of your unit dies by suicide, there are actions, activities, and responses that you as a leader need to consider and take to ensure the health and welfare of the unit. We don't like talking about this set of circumstances, particularly in a suicide prevention class, but in fact, the post-vention efforts that commanders and leaders initiate should be focused on preventing future losses to suicide. Having lost a member to suicide is within itself a risk factor. Leaders can engage in post-vention support in the following ways. You can allow opportunities for your people and even for you to discuss your associated pain and burden. You can encourage them to talk about the loss, remember the person, and seek counseling for themselves if needed. You'll want to model resiliency by sharing your own feelings of grief or pain in response to a death and what coping strategies you're using that help you increase your resiliency. You'll want to connect personnel to resources and utilize available post-vention guides and checklists for leaders. These can be found in the mobile app, and we'll show you where to find that on the next slide. When we are engaging with our airmen and guardians as part of a prevention or post-vention, there are many ways that we can continue to build protective environment that lowers the risk factors for suicide. This year, your emerging leaders have been trained that some resources are available for them on the mobile app, as well as for you. On the main screen, the ACE card is there along with resources. There's an icon for a directory and emergency phone numbers, as well as support agencies. They're right at your fingertips. In addition to those, on the side menu, there's an icon and a link to the Commander's Toolkit. This is where you can find the checklist that you will need as a commander or a leader to run if there's an attempt or a death by suicide in your unit. And remember, we're always there to help you. The JAG office, Public Affairs, Mental Health, and the Violence Prevention Office. We hope we have given you some tools to empower you to help your wingmen and proactively prevent suicide in our community. Please take a few minutes and complete the feedback tool for half. You can use the QR code or the hyperlink in the black box. Let them know what you think about the training. Also, don't forget to go back and complete the quiz so that your unit training monitor can update your training records. If you have any questions or would like to learn some practical skills related to how to help someone who's at risk for suicide, please email sabrina.pena@us.af.mil. Thank you for joining us today.